Thank you for your interest in the Flowing Waters Information System, or FWIS for short. My name is Doug Mulholland, and I'm a member of the Development and System Administration teams for FWIS. One small caution on this presentation. You're hearing at least the fifth attempt at recording this audio, and even to me, I have to admit, it's getting a little dry. FWIS was created in order to provide a place to store current and historical stream data that was collected using the Ontario Stream Assessment Protocol, or OSAP. Among its objectives, OSAP aims to bring solid science, including reproducibility and rigor, to stream studies in Ontario. In many jurisdictions, like Ontario before the widespread use of OSAP, the reproducibility of stream data was highly questionable. Important decisions that involve land development, municipal planning, and environmental stewardship can all hinge on data collected using stream studies, and with the use of OSAP, better outcomes from all data users are being realized, including academic researchers who are now able to make use of data to produce much higher quality models and analyses using OSAP data that they obtain from FWIS. FWIS also provides some error checking facilities. Numerous drop-down lists are used in FWIS forms in order to try and reduce some common data entry errors, and reports often include diagnostic messages to identify common mistakes. Here's a number of other reasons why organizations are choosing to store data in FWIS. OSAP-compliant forms. All data fields from all sampling types, including both constrained and unconstrained headwaters studies. Multiple mechanisms for data entry, export, and access, including web forms, bulk uploads, and a programmable, authorized, or application programming interface, usually known as an API. FWIS supports bulk import and export of all sample data, including photos and sketches. It's accessible to anyone with a web browser. We're working to fully comply with the governments of Canada and Ontario Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which includes support for screen reader technologies, low vision accessibilities, and so on. A consistent user interface. You see how one listing and data entry form work, and you can use the entire system. FWIS data spans jurisdictions and watersheds across Ontario. Report generation for scientific collectors permit reports, flow data, biota, and channel form and function. Reporting can be augmented with external data, such as the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, or OMNRF, Aquatic Resource Area, or ARA dataset. Because the Centre for Community Mapping, or COMAP, is a member of the Ontario Government's Ontario Geospatial Data Exchange, or OGDE, most data from Land Information Ontario, or LEO, can be accessed by the FWIS registered user community. FWIS greatly simplifies the data collection phase of a research project. Review and sign one data sharing agreement, and you can access the data from several organizations. Access to data can be managed by the provider, that is, who can see what data. All accesses and changes to data are recorded and can be used to notify stakeholders of important changes. The Data Access API enables data ingestion or uploading and export or downloading from any language that supports what we call the curl interface, such as PHP, Perl, Python, JavaScript, Google Apps Script, Java, or VBA. An MS Excel macro has been created to upload data directly from a spreadsheet on your desktop. For organizations where VBA access to curl may be blocked by a firewall, a Google Sheets equivalent with a Google Apps Script interface to FWIS is being created. FWIS works to facilitate data interchange with other systems. Scripts are being created that facilitate data comparison and synchronization with other data sources, such as databases and spreadsheets. Spatial data management for non-GIS users. Site locations and sampling metadata are shared with and accessible from other systems. A common interface is a protocol known as Web Mapping Services, or WMS map publication. Long-term data preservation. FWIS has been operational for 10 years, and the Computer Systems Group at the university has been active in computer science research for almost 50 years. And finally, any internal FWIS errors that do happen are reported directly to our team, the system administrators. Regardless of whether you are a data provider, that is, someone who collects and or enters data into FWIS, or a data user, It's important to have at least a basic understanding of the overall structure of FWIS data. FWIS and OSAP organize stream data into streams, sites, sample events, and projects. FWIS extends the structure to connect projects with organizations and even organizations to individual users. These connections actually make a difference to how you use FWIS for a couple of reasons. First, when the chain of connections is complete, from sample events to projects, organizations, and users, you can access the data. If the chain is broken for some reason, you won't be able to access the sampling data. As well, the arrows indicate something in the science of data management called a foreign key relationship. As an example, sites are defined as part of a stream. If a stream doesn't exist, no site can be defined on that stream. The easiest way to actually grasp this whole structure is to consider it from the outside in. Starting at the left side of the diagram, streams are the first list of records or table of data in the system. Within most jurisdictions, such as watershed management areas and conservation authorities in Ontario, or counties and regional municipalities, townships, and other municipalities, streams and other water bodies have unique names. However, across Ontario, there are numerous repeated names. Rumor has it that there are something like 31 mud creeks and a host of other streams with names like Black Creek, Brown Creek, and so on. To date, the Ontario government has not published a single stream naming and coding convention, although we're hopeful that one may be forthcoming within the next year. But we've been hopeful for quite some time. In FWIS and OSAP, streams are assigned codes on a first-come, first-served basis, and we encourage everyone who adds a new stream code to include descriptive text with notes that include flows into, name the stream or water body, near such and such a town, city, or road junction. In addition, we should point out that some data providers will combine a stream and many of its tributaries into a single stream code or a stream code complex. These practitioners are sometimes referred to as lumpers because they lump together several small streams as a single stream code. Others may assign a unique code to different tributaries of a stream. They're sometimes referred to as splitters. FWIS accepts both conventions of stream coding and to date does not enforce any geographic uniqueness. Only the stream code itself must be unique. As with stream names, within a single organization or even watershed, site codes are often unique, but across the province, different organizations may define site codes using a variety of conventions. OSAP doesn't require a particular coding, but in lieu of any other policy or guideline, one technique that works well is to prefix a site code with its stream code, followed by an underscore and then some unique site code identifier, such as the distance in kilometers from the mouth of the stream and perhaps which branch of a stream was followed upstream, A or B perhaps. Most organizations simply number sites as XX1, 2, 3, etc., but then they may subsequently add a new site between two existing sites and add a B on the suffix, which can sometimes become confusing. Sample events are the actual sampling studies, such as site identification, site features, channel morphology, or electrofishing, that take place at a site starting on a particular day. They may span more than one day, but the first day of sampling is the date normally recorded as the date of the sample event. We'll come back to specific sample events later. Sample events are grouped into collections of related sampling activities, sometimes spanning several years, called projects. A project can contain many sample events, but a single sample event can also be included in more than one project. Projects are identified with both a project code and a title. The title may not actually be unique within FWIS, but the project code must be unique. A project usually has a start date defined, and it may include an ending date, although, as is the case for much of FWIS, the mandatory fields, or sometimes we call them required fields, have been kept to a minimum. Projects also include a wealth of descriptive data or metadata to define, for example, why certain sites were selected to be part of the sampling within the project. When a new sample event is added to FWIS, it must be associated with at least one project, and the metadata for the first project is assumed to be assigned to that sample event by default. The user who creates the sample event, though, has an opportunity to override that default project metadata and identify a particular sample event as an exception to the default settings if appropriate for some reason. Project metadata can help both you and others to find certain sites at a future date if special site selection criteria are given. While you may be very familiar with your sites today, as well as why they were chosen for a particular type of sampling, it can be very important to document that selection rationale for others or even yourself for future reference. Projects are also associated with one or more organizations, and individual usernames can be associated with one or more organizations. Every FWIS user, including someone who has not even logged on to FWIS, can view which organization was associated with what project, what sample events are associated with every project, as well as the sample event type, date, stream name, stream code, site code, and the site's FWIS coordinates for every sample event. In other words, anyone can effectively determine who, or which organization, did what, the sample event type, where, and when. By default, the specific sample event data, such as photographs and sketches of a site identification sample event, can only be accessed by someone who is associated with an organization that is, in turn, associated with the sample event itself. Another mechanism, the FWIS data sharing agreement, has been added to facilitate a more open data practice. Anyone associated with an organization that is a signatory of the agreement can access any data that is associated with any other signatory organization. With that knowledge of the FWIS data structure, let's turn to some FWIS data entry facilities. If you have access to a computer that's connected to the internet, you can open a web browser, such as the Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, or Microsoft Internet Explorer or Edge browser, and enter the URL https://www.comap.ca/FWIS. While the current suite of Microsoft browsers have been successfully used to access FWIS, Microsoft has announced that their recommended browser will ultimately be based on something called the Chromium open source codebase, which means that it will display web content more like the Google Chrome browser than the current Internet Explorer or Edge browsers currently might. At the present time, we often recommend the use of either Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, although they may not always be available at every organization. To enter data, you require a FWIS username and password. If you don't yet have one, click on the Sign Up Now link in the top right corner of the FWIS homepage. Once you have created your own username, you will also need to be associated with an organization that is authorized to enter data. That association can only be done by a system administrator. Click on the Contact Us link and provide your name, your organization's name and contact information, including ideally a website, and mention that you want to be able to enter FWIS data. While it may take up to 24 hours to process, it's often completed in less than an hour. When your username has been associated with an authorized organization, you're ready to go. If you don't yet have a project title or code defined, that's usually the best place to start. Navigate to the Add Edit Data navigation section and click on Project Metadata. The first page that you'll see is the first 50 entries of the list of projects. Project codes, titles, descriptions, start dates, and end dates. The page consists of several FWIS navigation links at the top, a search form to filter the project listing, followed by the actual project results. You can either browse the list and at the bottom click on the link to go to the next page or any other page of the listing, or you can use the form at the top of the listing to search for project entries to reduce that list. If you know any part of an existing project code, for example, you can enter that partial text into the project code field of the Search for Project Entries form and click on the Search button. If you enter data into more than one field, The results must match all of the search criteria that you specify. As a general rule in FWIS, the more you enter into a search form, the fewer results you'll see. If none of the existing projects are related to your organization, you can create a new project by clicking on Add an Entry. Fill in a project title, a brief description, and choose a project code. If the project is only associated with your organization, it may be helpful to include something such as the short form of the organization name or its initials as part of the project code. You may also wish to include your organization's name, short form, or initials in the project title in order to find it again easily at a future date. If you know a meaningful start date, end date, or any study design factors, please provide as much information as you can. If you want to enter additional comments or associated references related to the project, feel free to record them as well. The last field on the form is access type. If you don't specify a value, a default value of open is entered for the project. You can request a different setting, including proprietary, prior notification, or agreement required to govern sharing of your sampling data. Please remember that certain information should not be shared in most FWIS forms. In particular, personal information such as a landowner's name or contact information should not be entered into FWIS forms. Sensitive species information or species at risk or invasive species sightings should not usually be entered into a project form field, as this data may be shared publicly. When you have filled in the project form with at least the required project code, which must be different from any other project code in the system, click on the Add button at the bottom of the form. If you choose not to create a project record at this time, you can simply close the form using the X in the top right of the form. Or if you discover more information at a later date, you can always return to FWIS and edit the project record then. Whenever you create a new project, it's important to associate that project with your organization. Browse to the Add Edit Data, Project to Organization Associations listing. If you are adding a new association, click on Add an Entry and locate your organization and project in the drop-down lists. Select either Partner or Lead from the Role drop-down and click on the Add button. Projects usually consist of one or more lead partners and possibly other partner organizations. With a project defined and or associated with your organization, you're now ready to enter some sampling data, although you may need to set up a site and perhaps even a stream, if you're doing a study of a stream where no sampling has been recorded in FWIS before. If you're adding a sample event to a site that already exists, feel free to skip the following steps that describe adding a new stream and site code. Step 1. Click on Add Edit Data and Add Update Sampling Data. Under Step 1, select a stream or add a new stream code. Select Add Edit a Stream Name and Stream Code Entry. Click the Add button and fill in a project code or stream code, stream name, and description at least. Scroll to the bottom and click the Add button. And after the entry has been saved, close that tab and return to the original and press the refresh button. When the refreshed list appears, click in the list of streams and type the first 2 or 3 characters of your stream name. To add a new site, select a site code or add a new site. Select the stream name if it's not already selected, enter a site code and a brief site code description. Uncheck Validated if you're not sure of the site description, and click the Add button. You can close the Add a New Site tab after it's been successfully added. Click a previous stream, come back to your stream, and the list will refresh showing your site. To add a new sample event, select the stream name or code and then the site code. Scroll down a little bit and you'll see Add a New Sample Event. Select your project code and title from the drop-down list. Select the stream name, code, and site code from that drop-down list. Select the sample event from the drop-down list and enter the sample event date and sample number. The sample number is a positive integer, such as 1, 2, 3, that indicates whether this is the first, second, third, etc. time that this type of sampling has been done at this site within the current year. By default, access type will be set to open, but you may prefer to select proprietary, prior notification, or agreement required if special limited access to the data is needed. If you are entering data into FWIS from another system and there is some sample event identification code in use by that system that you'd like to record within FWIS, up to 50 characters, you can enter it into the field Organization Sample ID. Otherwise, this field can just be left empty. If this site is an exception to the default project metadata, you can click on the Sample Project Metadata Variances tab and enter the metadata for this sample event directly. Click on the Add button at the bottom of the form. And your browser should display the corresponding sample event data entry form. For a sample site identification sample event, fill in various fields such as the coordinates of where your site's located, or click on the map. You can use the other tabs to record a site description, including site length, status, whether you approve its location or you need extra time to determine if it's accurate or not, some rationale for why you recorded this information, access route, and so on. Perhaps if the site was unsampleable for some reason, you may wish to record some of that data, and click Update at the bottom of one of those tabs. After the basic information has been recorded, you can record things like site markers, upload sketches, and upload any site photos that you might have taken. This completes the generic information about recording a new sample event. We'll return in another video with more details about other sample event types. Thanks for your attention.